Okay, it's recording. So you you wanted to talk about your childhood?
Yeah, as a very young child, I remember mostly indoor games and indoor things that we did, and I have great fond memories of Christmases and how my brother and I would come down and the stockings were hung by the chimney with care and all that, and we'd take the stockings and take them upstairs in bed and start pulling out the things out of we'd sit in a big double bed. But I had my own bedroom for a while, a small single bed. It's the smallest bedroom, and it overlooked the woods. The location of the house was very, very instrumental in my whole growing up, and very important. Was that at the top of the hill in South Green Street, as I said earlier, and there were no houses beyond our house. All the other houses on the street, they still exist that way even today. It's now a huge parking lot, and then there's a small woods, maybe about an acre and a half, and it immediately adjoins the lot on which our house was located. But that woods was within our property lines, and our driveway passed through the woods, and that woods was a great growing up place, because not only did it provide some firewood, my dad would take mostly dead trees, and he had a big crosscut saw, and he would saw those up into logs, and we'd haul them up into the house and use them in our fireplace. And ultimately, we also used them for heat in some instances when we got a later furnace, which was called a three-way furnace by International Boiler Works. He was the lawyer for International Boiler Works, and the president of International Boiler Works lived right next door. His name was Frank Metcalfe, and they were very good friends of the Metcalfes and the Bensingers, and their house was maybe only 50 feet from our house. The frontage on the street was modest. The houses were very large and roomy. The house had a nice big wide front door, a wide hallway. Still exists there, and a nice sized dining room and tiny kitchen that was added to later in life. A little lavatory in the back, the hall, and a cupboard with the literally crawl space, because it was a low cupboard underneath the stairs going to the second floor. And in that cupboard is where we kept a lot of our games. And so as young kids, that we kept all our marbles in there, our parcheesi, our many other board games we used to play, and checkers, and then ultimately Chinese checkers, and even the children used to come over there later, my own children, and loved to go in that crawl space of the door, about 4 by 4, and open that door, and in there you have to crawl in to get a lot of the things, but it was fun. It was a hiding place. We used to play hide and seek inside the house sometimes. Large living room with a fireplace. Adjoining the living room was a two-story porch, open porch with a roof on it, and screened in both on the first floor and on the second floor. The first floor was used in the summer, of course, and it had beautiful white wicker furniture outside on it. And there's where we played a lot of our games, ping pong, a pool table, sort of a portable pool table. It wasn't full size, it was kind of a junior pool table. And we used to play pool there, and other kind of games. We'd play poker. We learned to play poker there, the boys did, and the other card games. it was fun growing up inside, and the woods provided some of the outside early experiences. We would go outside either through the back door or the front door, and in the woods we built tree houses, and there was a large clump of trees, of oak trees, with 4 main trunks. Each one was about maybe in diameter. Diameter's all the way around, isn't it? Or is it? No, it's diameter through the middle. Which is
Through the middle.
Through the middle in diameter.
Circumference is all the way around.
Yeah, the circumference. That's right. Diameter was maybe a foot and a half on each one of these trunks, and they were together in one clump within about 10 feet of each other, and they went straight up for a while before they branched out. It's right in the middle of the woods, and we built ladders on those trunks, and we climb up the ladders, and then we built a little platform about 10 or 15 feet high.
So you just nailing boards into the ladder? Yeah, nailing boards
right in the side of the tree. Yeah. And the tree didn't seem to mind. It didn't die. Anyway, but we had these terrible rickety shacks. Hardly, sometimes they were partially enclosed, and sometimes they were totally enclosed. And we just sit there, and then we'd play games and climbing up and down. And that was one thing we did in the woods. The other thing that my dad, there was at the edge of the woods was a swamp, a huge, we call them swamps. Now they call them wetlands, of course. And it was a huge swamp. I mean, it was good 20 or 30 acres. And it went up to what is now the college of the, we called it Normal Hill, but then because it was primitive, it was much, much, much smaller with a couple hundred students. The East Stroudsburg Normal School, and that was the undergrad. That's the public school part of the East Stroudsburg Academy. I don't know. It wasn't Academy. The name will come to me, but that was a 2-year education, mostly a lot for women and some men in it. They had good basketball teams, but it was up there. And going back to the swamp was filled with, we called them tuffets, which were about a foot high and made out of kind of a sawgrass kind of grass that comes out of swamps and tuffets. And you could run on those or jump from one tuffet to another. And we used to have races across in there from the tops of in the summertime and stuff. In the wintertime, it didn't matter so much. You just had to be sure not to sprain your ankle or break a leg running, but we'd have actual races around there. It was frozen in the wintertime, of course. But a stream ran through this swamp, as it does most swamps, and it ran right up to the edge of our property, and some of it was onto our property. So my dad, with the help of some of the bigger kids and ourselves, we pitched in and helped. We dug a pool about the size of this living room, which is like 20 feet one way and maybe 18 feet the other. And around this pool, he put flagstones. So there's a walkway going around the pool, including big flagstones. These are across the entrance and exit from the pool, because this was a flowing stream. Flow slowly as it would. There was no rapids or anything like that. And we even had a little peninsula in one place of the pool. You could go out, and that played a big part in the game we developed. We would do naval battles. We built actually small ships out of wooden planks we cut, and with the superstructures on them, and we'd pound nails for cannons, and then we had long poles, and we'd have battles against another opponent with likewise equipped, and move these ships around in this pond, and that was fun. We also had a little tiny garden down there next to the pool, and then finally ducks found those pools, wild ducks, mallards, and they'd fly in and fly out, and they would start having families there. And the little chicks and ducks floating around the pond with a lot of entertainment. And at night, though, cats, wild feral cats, some of them might have been domestic cats, I don't know, would come through and would attack these and kill the chicks. And about that time, I had learned on a target range someplace to shoot a .22 rifle. And I got permission from the chief of police, who was named Arthur Swink, to shoot these cats in order to protect these ducks. And why they ever let me do that, that near houses and stuff. Although the pool was pretty isolated from any houses. There weren't any. I was shooting from the land side across the swamp. And I'd take a flashlight down there at night with me, and because I'd hear the fussing that the ducks were making because the cats were assaulting their offspring, and I'd hold the barrel of the gun along with the flashlight, and bang, I got a couple of cats, and the SPCA will be after me, but they weren't very well organized then. But then I'd bury them the next day, and I had a regular little cemetery of 2 or 3 markers for these cats. And let's see what else. Oh, I had rock gardens I built. I love to build rock gardens and maintain them. And then of course we do chores. We had a coal fire furnace for a long time, and hauling ashes out, and the truck would come along to pick up the ashes at the front of the house, and doing that and mowing the lawn and sweeping and helping in the small vegetable garden and in the flower garden. And one of the wonderful things about behind our house was a large field that had been left fallow. There had been a farm there, a field that was briars and some brush and so on and so forth, but it was generally flat. And so we decided to build an athletic sports complex, using the word loosely, of course, there, and because we all love sports. So there's two levels. There are two team levels. One with the Eagles, the bigger kids. My brother Charles, and he's about 3.5 years older than I was. And my gang, South Green Street, was blessed with a lot of boys. Some girls too, but a lot of boys. And that was great because South Green Street was our team, which had the name Eagles. And they play teams from other areas. Normal Hill had a team, and that's where the college is now. But there were more houses there then. They tore down houses, of course. And North Green Street had a team, and Ransbury Avenue, which is 1 block away from South Green Street, had a team. So there were 4 teams in the league, and we played sports. But we had to build this field ourselves, and we built it by, we looked at a baseball diamond was the essential thing at that point. And we built our own backstop. We measured and lined the field. It wasn't a full, little bigger than a little league field, and it had no backstop. And the outfield was treacherous because a public road, although it wasn't used heavily at all, ran through part of the outfield. And there there were drainage ditches on each side of the road, so a fly ball was a big hazard. We watch it while you're stepping or running to try to catch fly balls. But we had a base path, and we made our own kind of wooden bases and like home base and stuff. And then we sometimes get cast off pieces from the college, nearby college, of sports equipment. Been heavily used. We'd tape up old battered baseballs, and our parents would, of course, help us buy gloves. But our parents didn't. We built a wire mesh, chicken wire we called it, backstop behind the home base, and had it on big poles. And we had a bench to sit on for the team that was at bat. Lots of times we didn't have 9 on a side, but we split up the numbers to make them fairly even. And we had a lot of fun. I remember I tried to play third base. And the third base, there were lots of briars that grew low to the ground, the kind that kind of just go along the ground, those kind of briars. So it was a real hazard playing third base. I was a lousy third baseman. And also there was a rise, so a ground ball would come skimming along the ground, and then on this rise it would lift it up, and then your position would be at the other end of this rise, and the ball would take off again, and so it would come up and hit you in the face if you weren't careful. But we had lots of fun there. We also made that into other sports. We dug a broad jumping pit and put sawdust and stuff in it, and we had short dash races there, and so we'd have what do you call that? Sports, that kind of sport. Track. It was a track, but we didn't have any real running track, but we substituted.
And this is all kids,
This is all kids.
No supervision.
No, and the big trouble was that there were no umpires. So you'd have to be called, and there were lots of terrible arguments over strikes and balls, and there were outs and safe, and then we'd get an umpire, and it was often another kid, and we didn't think much of his judgment a lot of times, and some of the games would end in fisticuffs, of course, and we had a lot of fun growing up. I'll tell you. We built a tent out there. Had a tent. I got it from one of my uncles who'd been in, I forget which, World War I guess, and it was a big tent, so we'd stay overnight in the summer nights and get bitten by mosquitoes. In the woods, adjoining our woods, was part of a farm where they had cows, and they didn't maintain their fences very well, so the cows would roam into our property some of the time. Of course, we had some of the older kids were trappers, and they trapped in the swamp. They trapped for skunk and possum and muskrats, and maybe that's it. They trapped them. They did some selling. Joe Small, who's still alive, lived across the street from us, was Anyway, Mitchell Palmer. I'll get to the law in a minute. Yeah. Anyway, Joe Small and my brother Chud and some other guys did some trapping there. The only guy that I think from the older generation group, the Eagles, was still alive. My brother died in '93. But Joe's still alive in Florida. We still call him. He became mayor of Stroudsburg, had an insurance agency in Stroudsburg, and was a very close friend of my brother Chud for years and years. And he still calls us. We talk to him often. He comes to visit. He has family here. The small insurance company is his family. and he comes in Christmas, and sometimes he'd come in the summertime too. But there's very few in the older generation of guys. The Eagles left. I don't know whether we've lost most of them, but Russell Imp is a very close friend of mine. Russell was a vice president of International Boiler Works, but before that, he was involved in the ski business with us, and sometime we'll talk about that too. That's a whole other story.
Now the house in Green Street, that's still standing.
Yeah, that's right, still there.
So this swamp, all this...
That's all parking lot now.
The field, that's all gone now.
That's all gone.
Huh.
It's too bad. The field in back of the house may still be there. I haven't been back to check it. I'm sure it doesn't, but there may be a house built there too. I should go over. Once in a while I drive down South Green Street, and basically that hasn't changed much. The houses are still about the same houses. There were a few less. There were more open spaces then, but there were lots of houses and a lot of kids, as I said, raised on South Green Street. But to me, one of the great things about growing up was our innovation, that we made our own recreation. We had no subsidies, nothing. I mean, the parents would help out their individual kids and equipment, of course, but there were no uniforms. Nobody had a uniform. We'd scrounge bats and baseballs, as I said. Many times we had to tape them up with black tape to keep them sort of round. But the idea that we created our own and used our imagination and a little ingenuity. My dad, in our basement, we had 2 workbenches. One was his, and one was my brother's and mine. And we had our own vices and our own tools gradually. So we learned to become pretty handy. We also had a course in school called, well, sometimes they call it shop now.
Shop, yeah.
And we learned about how to use tools and so. But since then, it's fallen into disuse. I can't do much of anything now except build fires in the fireplace.